Hi guys, Immortilize here. So with the Diablo 4 Season 9 PTR looming in just a few hours, I thought it'd be a good idea to go into my Hydra build planners I've put together. I've got two variants. This is a build I've played since Season 4 every season, and I have made it work in the endgame for every one of those seasons, for better or worse. The build has had its problems. It's been super off meta until now. We have been asking for area effect and a unique for this build for a very long time. We're finally getting one. It looks very exciting, and I know a lot of people are excited for this. So as you can see, it's going to start off with just a few heads, really small, and then afterwards, when you got the unique on, the more heads you get above number 3, it will just keep increasing their size, or at least that's how we understand it, and they'll keep getting bigger and bigger, and they'll do area effect damage, and hopefully we'll be able to scale the damage to a point where it'll be useful. So let's get into this. I've got two variants. I've got a burning variant, a dot damage variant, and I've got a crit damage variant. So we'll start with the burning variant here. I'm just going to quickly run through this, guys. If you're interested in any more details to do with this planner and build, I would look in the description of the video. I will link both the planners there, and you can ask me questions in the comments if you have any. So the first thing we've got, this is designed to be an absolute endgame GG build, by the way. So obviously in a brand new season you would need some progression there, and we'll get there when we can. But so I've kind of gone for a balanced build here. There's a lot of assumptions, a lot of questions. There are some things I will need to test. This may not be the most optimal build, but I've had a pretty decent amount of experience with this build and what scales it. And generally speaking, I've tried to balance all of the multipliers. So I'm using the Hail of Glass because at the moment the damage aspects on it does not specifically apply to ice shards. It just amplifies the damage based on ice shards hitting. So if you can fit ice shards into your build and keep hitting enemies with it, which you'll be able to do in this build, you'll be able to get up to 100% multiplicative damage on your helm. On top of that, it gives you cooldown reduction, attack speed, and intelligence. Those are three incredibly good stats for this build, because you're going to want to be able to cast Inferno at a very good rate. You're going to want to be able to spam your conjurations to keep your primordial binding passive stacks at 10. Attack speed scales the attack speed of your Hydras, so you can get 100% in attack speed 1. We'll try and get as much as we can in attack speed cap 2 as well, because that does just keep scaling the Hydra's attack speed, which is another way of scaling their damage. It is worth noting that Pyromancy attack speed does not scale the Hydra's attack speed, so don't be bamboozled by this. And Intelligence just scales our skills damage, so this is fantastic. So you could also use, the Harlequin's Crest will be a very popular option here. That will give you skill ranks, that will give you armor, it will give you a bucket load of cooldown reduction, and so on and so on. And the maximum resource will help scale your Serpentine's aspect, so that may be better. I don't know. We will have to test them out. However, it will still be difficult for that to be 100x multiplicative damage on top of all these other things we're getting. So we're going to have the intelligence scaling as well. So we'll have to test those out. The best in slot chest piece will still be Shroud of False Death. The +1 to passives is just too good to turn up. The all stats is also very useful here. The resource generation will be super handy for maximizing our mana, because we're going to want to have maximum mana every time we summon a Hydra up. So this is still going to be best in slot. And the stealth and movement speed is always welcome as well. So for gloves, this is an interesting one. On both variants, I am going with the Sede's bindings, and there's two reasons for this. A lot of people haven't gone for this because they are reverting the bug where primordial binding will not go to 18 ranks. It will go to 7 or 8, I think. The reason I've still got this in is two reasons. One, we're not stacking primordial binding anywhere else on the build other than the 3 in your skill tree and the 1 on your Shroud of False Death. So it means adding another 7 ranks here is actually going to give you quite a lot more damage in that particular multiplier. And that is 14% multiplicative damage times 10. So 140 when you've already had 60. So it's about 2.4 times more damage on that multiplier. So it's a pretty big boost to it. We could go for other options here. You could go for a legendary with an aspect with all the stats on it. That may end up being better. We'll have to see. But for now, this seems like a pretty sensible choice. The aspect is also very handy here because it allows us to get all of our familiars up very quickly, and it allows them to stay up longer, which will allow us to keep 10 stacks of primordial binding up much easier without even needing to use the Say rune, which the Say rune is extremely good. Most other variants I've seen that are out there already will use that with the wolves. They chill, they freeze, they keep your stacks at 10 all the time, but that does remove another rune of damage you could be using otherwise, and this will allow you to do that. So we're just kind of trying to balance things here. So the pants are an interesting one. A lot of builds right now have got the actuals conduits in there, and I did the math. The actuals conduits with the maximum resource at maximum roll with triple masterworks in it probably will give you slightly more damage than this as raw damage. What I don't know is once the 20% multiplier comes in, because we're going to be able to get unstoppable all the time in this build, will that give us more damage once we throw all the other multipliers into the build? We'll have to see. It also very much depends on whether Serpentines is an additive damage scaler or whether it's a multiplicative damage scaler, because if Serpentine's a multiplicative damage scaler, I would absolutely assume it's going to get nerfed. It would be way too strong. You're going to be going to like 750 to 1000% multiplicative damage, which is insane. So if that's additive, then this will actually probably be better. If it's multiplicative, then it's kind of up to you which one you use. I'm probably going to stick with the Tybalt's Will, because I'm going to assume the Serpentines may well get looked at. And this is a pretty solid item all around anyway. Boots, we're going for attacks, reduce evade cooldown, intelligence, max life, movement speed on here. I have actually rolled evade cooldown reduction in here, and the reason for this is if you decide you want to use teleport on your enchantments, you can just replace one of them in your enchants for this if you want to speed farm. The setup I've got right now, which doesn't utilize that so much, is in essence of pushing with the most possible burning damage. So you could easily change out evade cooldown here for movement speed or something else otherwise as well. But otherwise, these are pretty standard boots. The aspects of Orange Herald will just help you get your Inferno off cooldown a bit easier. They doubled the base lucky hit of the Hydra from 2.5% to 5% this season coming up, so that's really nice. So adding the extra Hydra lucky hit chance here, which has also been improved a bit, on top of all the other lucky hits chance scalers we've got, we should have a decent amount of lucky hit chance on the Hydra head, so we should be able to proc this a little bit easier than before. Weapon is pretty much the same as what I used in Season 8 for my Hydra build, for any of you that checked that out. The only difference here is it's got the Serpentines aspects on it, and this, it has changed, and it does look like it's multiplicative and not additive, and if it is insane. If you're at maximum mana on your bog standard 100 mana, and this is on a two-handed weapon, you're going to get 500% multiplicative damage from it, which is far and beyond stronger than any other multiplier you can have, as long as you've got maximum mana every time you cast Hydras. And the Hydras last 10 seconds, so you really only need to cast them once every 10 seconds and just paste them out, or have a phenomenal amount of mana regen, which we'll have because of the primordial stacks. That's where the extra 7 ranks in primordial bindings come in extremely handy. So yes, this is very strong. We've rolled damage over time because we're going into burning on this variant. And yes, I mean, if you choose to use the actuals conduit, you'll get a really high amount of maximum resource and resource gen, and that will go very nice with Serpentine. So they are more than usable there. Coming over to the amulet, this is the new source, this is the cake, this is the unique that we've been asking for. It makes sense that it's in the amulet, the Ophidian Iris, because otherwise it would have been a bit broken to use this alongside a Fractured Winterglass. The stats on it for a burning build are not the best. It's got intelligence and pyromancy damage. The other two are kind of useless to us. So we'll have to see how the burning variant runs. It may or may not be any good. I won't know until we get into it. And the bit that's really a big question for me here is what this item does is it takes your Hydras, it takes all of the extra heads you would spawn in a circle. So any of you that have seen the ridiculous circles of Hydra heads, it will make it so it only spawns with 3 heads, but every head above that will scale your damage up by 100%. And you can get plus 15 heads, including this amulet and your tempers and in the skill tree. So that can give you up to 1500% multiplicative increased damage, which is insane. And it makes the attacks explode on impact. Now, the thing that's important about this for the burning build that I don't know is when it explodes, does it apply the burning damage as well as it should do? If it does, then the burning version of this build could be very good. If it doesn't, then the burning version is pretty much the same as what it is in the current version of the game, but it just doesn't have, it has maybe a bit more damage, but it won't have the AoE. So it's going to have that problem where it just can't get through to the boss on time. So this is something I will be testing out later on today. And yeah, we'll see. Otherwise, we'll be going into a crit damage version of the build because we can't really utilize the other bits of this build, of this item here anyway. But the fact that it scales the damage and gives you the AoE would be worth using this for on a burning version of this build if it works. And the burning version, the burning damage does have a lot higher scalers elsewhere. So if that works, it could be usable. We're still using the Tower Shards. That goes without saying. I mean, I did consider taking it off, but it is just too good. The cooldown's great. Lucky hit's great. Non-physical's great. Potent warding helps. They said resistances are going to be hard as a cap, so the potent warding will help a lot. And obviously a 75x damage multiplier is super nice. And the aspects of engulfing flames here is, for a burning build, very good. Gives you up to 75x damage against healthy enemies, that are not healthy, sorry, that's a burning. So once they're below us, the 85% life mark, they're going to take 75x burning damage, and that's very nice. In terms of socketables here, rune-wise, we've got the Igni and Thol. This is a very good combo I found on Season 8, where you can just go around, cast your skill, and you're just going to cast down Mystical Frost Nova. This is important to note. Mystical Frost Nova is the node on the Sork tree, which gives you 15% extra just generic damage after using it, and it inflicts freeze, and it inflicts vulnerable onto enemies. So you're getting your freeze from permafrost, you're getting your you're making enemies vulnerable, and you're getting 15% damage. And you're going with the Igni rune, you can activate this every 3.6 seconds, which is often enough that you're going to benefit from its effects all the time. And then the second one's because we don't need the save rune here, and there's two reasons for that. One we mentioned because of the Side's binding, and one because of the catalyst, which we'll get to in a moment. We can use something like the Ohm rune with the Nagu rune, and with six summons active all the time, the Nagu rune will keep your Ohm Warcry active all the time. So you can stick anything in here which will just boost your damage, which is really nice. It's just another damage multiplier, and that is what we want on the build. The Say is really nice, but it doesn't give you more damage. It just gives you loads of extra summons. In terms of the armor socketables, we're using topazes, of course. Scaling intelligence, this scales our skill damage. That's just really good for our build. And in terms of the jewelry socketables, these are the new Heradric jewels. These are all been needing testing. This one here is a bit of a question mark. It's obviously going on the build. You're going to get 30% more damage for 4 seconds on your summons, but only when you injure or kill an enemy. So this isn't actually going to help you on a single target boss until they're below, if there's no ads on it. Now, you're going to sit there and have to wait until they're below 35% life before you can actually benefit from this at all. So it might actually be that this isn't the best thing for pit pushing or the real high-end content for that reason alone. It's a big amount of damage, but if you're not benefiting from it, or the other thing you could do is just fish for a boss where you got Spirit Cooler, I suppose. But it might also be once you're high enough in the pits, you're not getting enemies down to injured or killing them enough, so you're really benefiting from this enough. Maybe there's something else we could put in which is an all-the-time damage multiplier, which will just be better. I think the fact that this is limited to injured or killing an enemy is kind of a bit meh. I kind of wish it was something we could activate more often, to be honest, but it's going in there for now. We'll test out some things. For a burning build, this seems absolutely insane. I don't know if this infinitely stacks, but if it does, it's going to be crazy. Tyrant's Bane. Every time, after you deal damage over time to an enemy, they take 0.33% more damage over time for you forever. And if this keeps infinitely stacking and we keep applying damage over time to them from about 4 or 5 different sources, we are going to very, very quickly infinitely scale our damage over time. There seems like there's no cap on this right now. This could be completely cracked, which is why the burning version, if the AoE works on it, is the version I think I would end up playing, because this just seems completely broken. And for now, we're using the idol from below. Extra stats, more max life, unhindered. I'm pretty sure the dual gardens will be fine once you get good enough. So we'll see. Maybe they are really hard. We don't really know. And in terms of enchants, I have currently, as I say, this is a pit pushing version that's not designed to be a speed run. It's meant to be the highest we can possibly go. I've got Firewall and Firebolt in here so that they're automated through lucky hits or just dealing burning damage. Now, it might be that Firewall doesn't activate enough and it's not so good here, in which case we'd have to consider, do we put something else in here? I don't know. We'd have to work out one of these skills down below to put in here, and it can't really be either of these because we need a lightning, or I suppose it could be ice blades, but I kind of like the attack speed on it because that goes into attack speed cap 2, so that's really nice to have. But we could potentially take that off since we've got ice shards on the bar, put Firewall in here, then we could put teleport on the bar. These are things I've got to test. That's definitely a way we could go. Yeah, we've got, you could also put teleport in here for the speed farm version. You won't need both of these. You could just take Firewall off, for example, and run Firebolt, or vice versa. In terms of the Heraldic spells, this is an interesting one. This is obviously all theory. We haven't had a chance to play with anything yet. Now, I am going to use Cosmic Anomaly. I've noticed other builds haven't done it, but honestly, you don't need the pull-in from the Starfall, because if you're casting Inferno often enough, you're going to be pulling enemies in all the time anyway. This here gives you 5 anomalies. They are summons. They will count towards your Primordial Binding. This will help you keep your Primordial Binding at 10 stacks even easier, including with the Side's Binding. And if it turns out this works even better than I think, you might even be able to, and the Side's Binding isn't as good as we think compared to a Legendary, we could absolutely change that out for a Legendary, and this would still allow us to cap our Primordial easily enough. So on top of this, this will grant us Unstoppable when we've got 5 anomalies. I don't know how fast we can summon them, but if we can summon these up extremely fast, then we're going to be able to get another form of Unstoppable in our build, which is just super, super nice. So this is it. Otherwise, I would have used a Ner rune instead of an Ohm rune, because that would have just allowed me to keep up almost infinite Unstoppable anyway. But I have a feeling this is going to allow us, in conjunction with what you see in a minute, to make us basically permanently unstoppable. So you get to your 5 anomalies, you guess Unstoppable, and then I've assigned it to Inferno because that means we can control a bit easier when they're going to go and explode. So we can keep them at 5 until we cast Inferno. Gives us a bit longer to spawn them all up. We cast Inferno, it sends them all in, they blow up, and I've put on the Tranquil Stone, which when you invoke your Catalyst, it grants you Unstoppable for 5 seconds. So we lose Unstoppable from Cosmic Anomaly, but we grant it again for 5 seconds afterwards. And then the plan there is to hopefully be able to spawn the next 5 anomalies up within the next 5 seconds, so that you could then cast Inferno, which is on an 8.1 second cooldown. But if you, with the aspects of Orange Herald, hopefully we can get this down to cast every 5 seconds as well, so that we can keep vulnerable up permanently because of the 5 second vulnerable here. We can keep the 5 second Tranquil Stone cycle up permanently, and we just become infinitely unstoppable, infinite vulnerable application, and we're just sending these in to blow up every 5 seconds for just a bit of extra damage. Who knows how much damage they're going to do, but it can't harm. On top of that, I have put in a Fractured Core because removing the resistance aura effects for this build particularly is very nice. However, if it turns out the AoE is just completely cracked and it's massive and we don't actually worry about these too much anymore, I'd probably change this one for the other yellow one called Potent Alloy, which removes enemy barriers, because this is a burning build. And in fact, the other version will suffer the same way. Barriers currently mitigate crit damage and burning damage. So removing those barriers would be super, super nice. So I have a feeling these won't be so much an issue once the AoE comes into place. We might want to remove the barriers, but we'll start with this one. We'll see how it plays, and we might change to the barrier one Potent Alloy. And then I've stuck on Bloody Charm, and the reason for this is because it gives us another form of executing enemies with the explosions. So we'll be able to execute non-boss enemies when they can be executed, and it will increase our attack speed by 20%. Now, what I don't know is this an attack speed cap 1 or attack speed cap 2? But if this is an attack speed cap 2, we could potentially get our Hydras to the next attack speed breakpoint, and that will make them attack faster, which gives us more damage. So that's why I've put that there. And obviously we're using Smouldering Ember here because, we're going all in on fire. This gives us burning stuff, and it will just deactivate the Chilling Winds as well, which, to be honest, won't be such an issue to us because we've got permanent Unstoppable, and that's kind of the same for all of them. But this will help us destroy walls as well. It'll help us destroy the lightning pillars and stuff, so that's all really nice. So that's kind of the burning version. If I go into the crit damage version, a lot of it lines up the same. We're still using the Howard for Glass. We're still using the Shroud of False Death. We're still using the Sede's Bindings, Tybalt's Will. Same boots with the aspects of our Orange Herald. Same weapon, except I changed damage over time for Lucky Restore Primary Resource. You could roll crit damage on here, but they are reducing quite a lot the additive damages. So I don't know. I kind of feel like restoring your primary resource super fast would be better, but we'll see. Could just roll crit damage on here. We'll need to test. The runes are exactly the same as well. I've got them around the other way for some reason here, but they are the same. Nagu, Ohm, Igni, Thol. Same amulet, except we're going in on ranks of Devouring Blaze because we are playing a crit damage version of the build. And I've put Battlecasters in on the second ring because we haven't gone for any core skill ranks anywhere else on the build, which means 10 ranks here would give us an extra 10 ranks on the Hydra, which is 2 times more ranks than we have to start with. So that means the bonus we're getting from the 5 ranks of Hydra in our skill tree is only going to play 1/3 of what we've got if we put this on. It might be that even after 10 ranks of this, it still does not match up to a bigger multiplier. I need to see how much damage it actually gives us, because the scaling might have changed for Hydra. That's the thing. The base Hydra scaling might have changed. So once we can see that, I will decide whether we use Battlecasters here or whether we go and use the Flash Fire aspects. It's possible that new Flash Fire aspects will be better. The only thing that grates on me a bit there is the 90% multiplicative damage there will only work on healthy enemies. And on the high-end content, you're not going to be able to one-shot these enemies on high... when they're on maximum health. You're going to knock them below that, and then you're going to get 45% multiplicative damage. If this gives us 50% multiplicative damage, but all the time, to me that would be better than the 90, where you only get it on the top end of their HP, because it's all about what we can do in the top end content. So I kind of need to see how much damage the Battlecasters really gives us. And yeah, so here I have put in the Destroy Enemy Barriers one, because this is more important to us. Crit damage does not go through barriers. It just takes your base damage into account. So I've put the Potent Alloy in here straight away. The others are all exactly the same as the previous. And the other big change here is I have put the Teleport Enchant on the enchantment bar, because we no longer need Flame Wall. So I won't run through the entire skill tree, because honestly it will take a while. I'll go through the crit damage one for now, but basically the main things are Ice Shards becoming here, make it easy to activate. Obviously pointing teleport, so we can put that on our enchants. All the usual suspects with the summons. We've gone over here. We may not even need Invoked Hydra. We may just have so much critical strike on the chance on the build anyway. This may just be not useful, and we might be able to put the somewhere else. I need to see how it works out when you get all your dexterity in game. All the usual damage passives, come down, get Inferno, and then we've taken Esu's Ferocity, multiplicative crit damage, extra crit chance. It's really, really good for the build. And then the burning variant here is not a lot different, except we've taken Flame Wall. We've got extra points in Endless Pyre because we are doing burning damage here. And we haven't got the point in teleport right now because we haven't got it on the enchant bar. So if you want that on the burning variants, you will need to find a point and stick it in. But there's loads of points here you could take out if you want. We've got the summon Hydra node in the burning side here, because that's what makes Hydras do burn damage. And on top of that, the other thing is Glinting Firebolt. This allows you to do 25% multiplicative burning damage when Firebolt hits an enemy. So that's very important because it's on our enchant bar. Paragon wise, again, I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but the main thing to know here that is different to most people's versions of the build is I'm not using either the Conjuration glyphs. I'm using the Elementalist glyph, the Torch glyph, the Exploits glyph, Pyromaniac glyph, and Unleash glyph, and this is the burning version. And on the crit version, I am using the Elementalist glyph, the Pyromaniac glyph, the Destruction glyph, Unleash glyph, and Flame Feeder glyph. Now, the reason I'm not using the Conjuration glyph or the other crit damage Conjuration glyphs is because neither of them have multipliers in the middle section of the glyph. So you'll notice here, this has bonus to rare nodes, so that gives us additive damage and stats. It gives you a multiplier in the middle and a multiplier on the bottom. Down here, rare nodes again, so additive and stats, multiplier in the middle, multiplier in the bottom. And it'll go for the same for all of them. Additive, multiplier, multiplier. Up here will be the same. It'll be, yeah, scaling magic nodes. It's additive, multiplier, multiplier. And then over here, it's just additive, multiplier, multiplier. So the reason those conjuration ones, the only reason those might be better for us, guys, is if for some reason the additive damage on that doesn't get squished down the same way that the other additive stats have been squished down. Now, if those are skyrocket high and they happen to be proportionately massive compared to all the other additive we can get, then maybe they'll be better. They do have slightly better multipliers on the bottom section. And if the additive's really high on the top, maybe it'll average out. But generally speaking, something like Unleash, which I've got on this build, even though it's only got an 8% multiplier in the middle and a 10 on the bottom, this is better than a conjuration one that has a 14 on the bottom with no multiplier in the middle. And unfortunately, at the moment, our main way of gauging our builds is pushing higher in the pit, which comes down to minimal survivability to be able to survive, and then as much damage as you can humanly output as quickly as possible because you're on a timer. So this is why I've done this on this. I would recommend going through the planner on either variant or which ones you're interested in going through and seeing how I've put it out. I'm not using on the burning version the flame feeder glyph anymore because our combustion is now capped at 100% multiplicative. So we've managed to take a load of stuff out there and put in other multipliers instead. So that will help us with our burning damage version. The crit damage is the same. It's just taking all the multipliers that are useful to it. Mercenaries, I've gone for the same as I usually do. I've gone for Rahir and Variana. I like the attack speed on Bloodlust here. And Rahir, you can either get him to solve your armor or your resistances and come down for the extra damage he can give you. This is generic damage. It will scale any damage you've got. And he's just good for helping cap your armor or your resistances here, whichever you find useful. You'll probably find it's the same on both variants here for me. But you could change them to whatever you like. And to be honest, I think that's pretty much about it for the general preview. So obviously, this is all theory. A lot of it is based off of my experience of playing the build over the last however many seasons, and I've sort of slowly but surely sort of nurtured the build and figured out how to make it somewhat viable. I've got a lot of questions. If you've got any questions, guys, please leave some comments down below. I'd be really interested to hear what you're excited to try, what questions you might have, what concerns you might have. And yeah, I mean, the PTR is going to be dropping shortly. I'm really looking forward to get into it. Hope I'll be live when it's on. So feel free to come jump in, guys. I'll link that in the description down below as well. And until then, guys, keep safe. Much love. See you soon.